thinking about a few things. So right now, my daughters are doing exams. In fact, it's like today's the last day. So there's been a lot of tension at home, should we say. They're all very nervous and nobody wants to fail, etc., etc. I mean, they're not really important exams, but the thing is, in Spain, if you don't, you have to actually pass each year, like to get to the next year. So when I was a kid and growing up, it was just automatic. Unless you were sort of like, physiologically damaged or something, it was very, I don't know anyone who like had to do a year twice, and I've known of some really thick people, like really thick people, and they never had to repeat. You just get pushed through. So in Spain you don't. So, not that my girls are in any danger of like having to repeat the year, I don't think, but there's always that stress. So it got me thinking about like sort of the difference between like knowing something and being able to do something, because that's like basically exams, isn't it? You can read about something as much as you want, but unless you can actually express it and talk about it, calculate things based on that knowledge and actually do things, then you don't pass your exam, because it means that you can't really do it. If you can't do it, you can't do it. So it's kind of, it goes like, it reflects like a lot of life, and also like there are a lot of things that stop us being able to show what we're good at, or just use our knowledge, or even just act in a way that is sort of coherent with who we are. So my younger daughter, she finds it, like exams and stuff, more difficult than the older daughter, and she kind of has to work a lot harder for like inferior grades even. But she gets really stressed, which is sort of, it's reasonable. No one likes going into an exam when you know that you don't know it. But sometimes it's hard to know, what our problem is with the exam. So quite often, she's been, sort of known what she's got to do in the exam. I've tested her, and it's been like, yeah, you're not bad, you're pretty good. You're not going to fail, don't worry. And she'll be like so stressed that she knows that she's not going to be able to do the exam properly. And so I've spoken here a few times about EFT and stuff, and so we have done like a few sessions of EFT. So it's like in the night before she goes to bed, so that she can relax and actually go to sleep properly, not be mulling over the exam, but also before she goes to school. And it does work, and the fact that like the proof of the pudding is that she actually asks to do it. It's not just me saying, come on, let's do this, like this will make you feel better. It's kind of like, oh, can we do that? Can we do that thing? And she doesn't even she doesn't actually really even do it herself. I do it for her. So I'm the one who's doing the tapping on the pressure points, and it still works. It's good. So I mean, ideally she'd meditate, But, you know, I don't know how many 12-year-olds can meditate. I bet there are plenty, but she's not in a place where she can meditate right now. But she will like do the tapping techniques, you know. Either I do it for her or like she does it with me, but lately I've been doing it for her just to make sure that it works. And basically, you know, we talk about it after she's done it, you know, and how does she feel and what's the difference. And she actually acknowledges the fact that nothing's changed. It's not like it's some weird hack to be able to like memorize everything that you need to memorize or anything like that. No, it's not. It's just that it gives you that little, you know, you don't feel this kind of physiological anxiety about the exam or about whatever the thing is that's causing you this discomfort in your body. And it's important to acknowledge that a lot of what we feel, you know, we're not disconnected from our bodies. I know this sounds like, I mean, to me it sounds absurd to like say it, but you know, there's quite often, you know, we are quite our society is quite disconnected from our bodies in the sense that, like, medicine doesn't seem to want to acknowledge that what you eat can determine, you know, whether you get sick or how sick you get and things like that. And there's, you know, there's lots of escapism, you know, so all the mobiles and the TV and the tablets and, you know, the TikToks and the Instagrams, and it's sort of just, you know, watching other people, not like feeling yourself, you know, not feeling into your body and yourself, and you know, and that's a problem because people, they assume that you can't get confused about what your body's telling you, because when your body's sending out these signals, it's, you know, it's prepared for a stressful situation, but the kind of stressful situation that it's prepared for isn't an exam. It's a fight, or it's, you know, hiding, running away from a predator or something like that. So the responses that we've got, they're just not the correct ones, and so we shouldn't, you know, I'm all for embracing your body and your feelings and stuff like that, but you've also got to have some kind of discernment to know that perhaps what your body's preparing for isn't the actual situation that you're just about to get into. So when that's the case, you've got to try and get it under control, because there's absolutely no point being sat in an exam frozen in terror, because you can't hide from the exam. There's no point in being especially quiet. You know, it's just, so you've got to do what you can do. And another thing about exams, you know, it's fundamental to have some kind of exam technique, and that's something else that I don't see much getting taught. I don't see, like, my daughter's getting taught how to do exams beyond learn all this stuff. And you know, like, exams are like any other thing that you do. There's a skill to doing them, and it's not just about, you know, how much do you know of that thing, because you might know all that there is to know, but if you go to bits because you're too nervous, then it hasn't served you at all. And so things like, I mean, learning, knowledge acquisition is a funny thing, and sometimes, you know, I'm not saying that there's any magic to it, but sometimes you do know things better than you think you do, and just a little bit of contemplation and just letting your mind wander a little bit, you know, sort of like wandering around the information that you know, and you can get to answers that you think. I mean, I've done that more than once, like in important exams. You know, like exams that were going to determine what degree I got. And you know, these aren't exams that are easy. And you think, oh, I remember studying that, I can't quite remember it. Oh no. And like if you can choose questions, which is quite usual in your degree. So like you'll have like a set of compulsory questions and like maybe 4 or 5 questions, and you might have to do 2 or 3 of them, something like that. And so there'll always be something, well hopefully, at least for me, there was always one that's like, yeah, I can definitely do this, maybe 2. And then there'll be another one that you're like, oh, I don't know which one to do because I don't really know all of it, but I can get some of the way through. And so more than once, I've been doing an exam, and I've started answering a long question, and I might be like 15 minutes into it out of a 2-hour exam. You know, I've spent 15 minutes doing something, and something's clicked about another question that I read before that I'd chosen not to answer, and I've thought, oh, I'm going to answer it, and I've just crossed out, you know, the question and started the other one, and like I actually came top in one of my exams, like exactly doing that. And it's kind of, you've got to be relaxed enough to let your brain think. And also I think what helped was the fact that I wasn't thinking directly about this other thing, and it was like I was pointing the ISO on at a different question, you know, letting my right brain sort of, well, just do whatever it wanted, and it figured out the other question, or at least enough of it, so that it was like worth, I suddenly knew that I'd have more of a chance of getting more marks on the other question that I hadn't attempted than the one that I was attempting. And that's exam technique. So that's exactly, you know, you've got to have some kind of strategy to it, because sometimes, you know, ideally you don't make the wrong choice. But the point is, if you have made the wrong choice, then, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can still recover, you can still pull things back. And so that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to, you know, that I tell my girls is, you know, when you're in a situation, not just in exams, but like any situation, it's important to be able to like not just go on your pre-programming. So this kind of sounds a bit funny coming from someone who's always talking about good habits. And you know, what are good habits? Good habits are, you know, sort of pre-programming and relying on your pre-programming. But that's good for certain things, and it's not good for other things. And that's where, you know, that's kind of where things get complicated anyway, because one size fits all doesn't fit for everything. I mean, it just obviously doesn't. So I mean, if you're doing a maths exam, for instance, and you've just got like I'm talking like undergraduate maths, where it's just like, do these, you know, solve these equations, find these angles, you know, whatever. So then, if you do have the techniques ingrained in you, and you don't have to try and remember, oh, what is this? Is that the hypotenuse, or is it what? You know, if you're not thinking about that, then that's good. That's where you need a habit. But when you've got something that's just new, then obviously try and solve it with the known behaviour that you have. So you know, it does make sense to try and solve it with what you know, because at that point you still don't know if it's something that you don't know. But there's like an old cliche of like, you know, applying old solutions to new problems. You know, that obviously, it might get you some of the way, but it won't get you all the way. So, yeah, I mean, so being able to actually, so the thing is, sometimes it's difficult. We're in situations where we can't think, we're just reacting. And that's, that's a problem. That's like the whole fight or flight mechanism that we get into. It's just the worst thing if you need to actually think and figure something out. And I'm not just talking about exams, I'm talking about, dilemmas that you might come across. Or, so one of the things that I try to do, I mean, as an anarchist, I don't vote anyway. And I don't actually have political opinions in the sense of, some new moral dilemma or, social issues comes up, and I'm not looking to I'm not looking to how I think about it based on, well, I identify as a socialist, so what is the socialist of this, or I identify as a libertarian, so what would the libertarian think, or, whatever. What I try to do there, and what I you'll always hear me talk about, is principles. So the thing is, if you just have, I like to just have principles, and then apply those principles to whatever situation, and that'll show me what the outcome is. So I don't like to have opinions. I like to have reason to ideas. Ideas that I've achieved through reasoning, pass them through my principles about things. And also, once I've come to a conclusion about something, what I also try to do is just say, well, that's my conclusion regarding this subject. Now, I don't know what I'll think about it in 6 months or tomorrow or whatever. Because what I try to do again is just go through the process. Now, obviously, there are certain things that you don't need to reevaluate all the time, because they sort of they become axiomatic. So the axioms are just an axiom is something that's almost defined to be true. And so you accept that this is going to be true, so it's axiomatic. This is your absolute truth regarding something. So for an anarchist, an axiom is that you own yourself. Self-ownership is fundamental. That's it. You can't really argue anything from anywhere unless you own yourself. Because if you don't own yourself, then what right do you have to yourself? But at the same time, if you don't own yourself, how can someone else own you anyway? Because if you don't have, surely the fundamental right is yours. If anyone can own anyone, it's you owning yourself. And then it's so I can own myself, right? Good. That means if I can, everyone else can. But can you belong to two people? Well, that's not how property works, surely. So if I own myself, then no one else can own me. But not just nobody else, no physical, institutions and things can't own you. And so it's so why, what about institutions? And then you start going down that rabbit hole of the fact that just because something's written down on paper doesn't make it real. So an institution can't own anything because they don't exist. They're just invented things, like a corporation. I own 2 companies legally, and this is a corporation and that's a corporation, but it's just written down on paper. It's nonsense, isn't it? It's just some kind of, legal loophole to get you to be able to do certain things that a person wouldn't be able to do, or, it doesn't actually make sense. And so, the non-aggression principle, that's another axiom. So, the whole point of the non-aggression principle is that you can only, it's called non-aggression, you're not allowed to use aggression to aggress to infringe on someone else. You can protect yourself because the non-aggression principle entirely allows you to protect yourself, but it doesn't allow you to say protect yourself preemptively. So although like someone else's right to swing the fist ends where my face begins, their right to swing the fist doesn't end where my fear of being hit begins. So that's a big thing, and that's where people get, you know, a lot of the times when it's like, well, your right to swing your fist ends where my face begins. It's like, yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But you're confusing your face with your feelings about your face, and that's very different. So, you know. So where was I going with this? Basically to wrap up, because my lunch is ready. It's important, like I was saying, where we started with this, when we girls and exams and things, and just like in general. It's important to make sure that you're not just reacting to things, and like, you know, we're rational beings, and so if you're not engaging your rationality to deal with your problems, then that's another problem on top. You know, and not having opinions about things is actually a good thing, because there's plenty of things that I don't have opinions on. It's like, so who is better, you know, socialists or conservatives? And it's just like, you know, what you want on your shit sandwich, jam or mustard? You know, who cares? I don't care. I'm not, it's a non-question, it's nonsense to talk about it. So yeah, EFT for the win. Tap away to make yourself clear your mind a bit, be able to do stuff, and that's pretty much it. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.